You're watching E.T.N, where we don't do news, we just talk entertainment. Share and subscribe.
Hey guys, welcome to Entertainment Talk Nation. This is Rob. This video, we're going to talk about all this crazy Spider-Man news that's been going around since this afternoon. Before we get into that, please make sure you hit that subscribe button and share and like this video. It helps the channel a great deal. And of course, don't forget to follow me on all these social media platforms above my head. Instagram, Twitter, as well as Facebook. So this afternoon, Deadline reported that apparently the deal between Sony and Marvel has been nixed, and that Spider-Man would no longer be shown in any other MCU movies, I think, other than what they already had planned and signed. However, a lot of that has changed. According to Twitter, a gentleman by the name of Jeremy Conrad said that Deadline might have jumped the gun on the news, and that there's still discussions being held behind closed doors, that the deal is not a done deal in terms of them separating. However, interestingly enough, Deadline still has not removed their original article, which they put up this afternoon at around 1 o'clock. So interesting stuff there. Now, other social media outlets have been reporting as well. Polygon, Comic Book News, Variety. And it's hard to tell right now. And then on top of that, Comic Book News also posted an article saying that there were 2 more Spider-Man MCU movies planned for the future. Who knows what's going on? We're going to have to kind of sit back and watch and see how this unfolds over the course of the next, I guess, either next 24 hours or the next couple of days. If there are negotiations going on, one thing that I said to myself, and then it was amazing because someone on Nation said the exact same thing, was that perhaps this was a negotiation tactic by Marvel and Disney in terms of leaking out some of this information. Because let's face it, if Sony decides to end this deal, they're going to get a lot of backlash. Now, with that said, what is it that's causing this? Well, basically, I guess the original deal between Sony and Marvel heavily favored Sony in terms of revenue. You know, I think the number I saw on one of the articles was 5% that Marvel gets, or somewhere along those lines, although they do get the merchandising revenue from what I understand. And this time, basically, they want to cut it down the middle. They want to go 50-50. Sony's like, nope. And they apparently did not even return with a counteroffer. They just said no outright. Now, you can take sides here on whoever you want to take sides with. I know there's a lot of Disney haters out there, and there's a lot of people who dislike how Sony handled Spider-Man towards the end of Raimi's career, and once they tried to reboot him a couple of years back with Andrew Garfield. This is my take. These companies are both out to make money. I'm not going to hate on that. If you run a business, you run a business to make revenue. Revenue means you can do more projects. So for me, them wanting more money on either end, that's not my issue. My issue is this. Sony had a great thing with Spider-Man when Raimi did the first 2 movies. And then they got so greedy with all the popularity and all the money they were making that they decided to dip their hand in. Now, I understand, like I said, the need to want to make more money. That does not mean that gives you the right to go in and try to be creative. You got to let the people you hire do their job. Sony has a hard time doing it. Warner Brothers is the same way. Warner Brothers sometimes does the same thing, especially with their DC movies. So then you reboot Spider-Man. Amazing Spider-Man, good movie. I liked it. I thought it was pretty solid introduction into the reboot. Then you get the Amazing Spider-Man 2 and all hell breaks loose. Suddenly you got the Green Goblin popping up at the end of the movie out of nowhere. You got Electro throughout the whole thing, playing the Itsy Bitsy Spider on electrical conduits. And then you got the Rhino in this big-ass mechanical suit. I mean, it was just all over the place. Then let's not talk about all the, which, again, I have the movie reviewed on my channel. And with all that, I still enjoyed it because I just like the whole action and all the villains, and I like Jamie Foxx and all that. But let's be fair here. It was a big mess. It was. So then leading up to the movie, you got all the trailers and all the TV spots showing everything about the movie. And then they're pitching the whole, it was basically a big promotion for a big universe. It floundered horribly. Nobody went to see it. It didn't make very much money. And then Sony squashed it. Herein comes Marvel to the rescue. They cut a deal with Sony, and they pretty much, not that it should have never have had to be done like this, but they more or less put Spider-Man back on the map. And now Spider-Man is about as popular as he was back when Raimi did it. And here comes Sony again, blinded by success. Instead of allowing Marvel to do what they're doing and exercise their plan, they now want to not have anything to do with that. And they're willing to let the deal die if that's what it has to take. And my guess is that they're thinking, look, he's popular right now. This is probably a good time to grab him back and let's do our own thing. Problem is, you're going to upset a lot of fans, and a lot of fans are going to be very critical on what you do with Spider-Man going forward. The other thing I read in one of these articles was that the MCU was planning to take on Venom and whatever other ideas that Sony wanted to do, or whatever other Spider-Man related content they wanted to do. Basically, Marvel and Disney were asking for half. They wanted to split. It sounds to me, again, I don't have all the details because the news is changing, so it's hard to tell what's what. So again, take all this with a grain of salt. But essentially, they want to split it down the middle, and they want to bring in other Spider-Man, like Venom. Venom was one of the names mentioned, which is why I keep saying that. And Sony's not having it. So, but here's the deal. Sony, let's be honest here. Even if they're cuffing you by the testicles a little bit, what choice do you have? You've essentially sat back and made money the last 3 appearances that Spider-Man has had. Civil War, you have actually more than 3 because you have both Avengers movies, Civil War, Far From Home, and Homecoming. And you've sat back and you've made money off of this. You've just sat back and collected checks. Marvel more or less has done all the work. So what's wrong with that? I mean, I know you're thinking to yourself, for the now, you can make more money now. If we had Spider-Man to ourselves, we get it all. We can do it now. We can make more money. But think about this. If you cut this deal with Marvel, even if it means you lose more money now by giving them more to their end, think about how much money you're going to make going forward. Think about this. Spider-Man showed up towards the end of the Infinity Saga, starting with Civil War. Civil War, 2 Avengers movies, and 2 of his own movies. That's 5 movies that Spider-Man was involved in towards the end of the Infinity Saga. And I can guarantee you Spider-Man is heavily planned to be in the whole saga for the next few years. Think about how many movies that is, that you just get to sit back and collect checks. So yeah, you might lose more money right now, maybe off the next Spider-Man movie, but in the long run, Spider-Man's going to have a lot more longevity with the MCU than he is under you. Because while Spider-Man has a large gallery of characters and villains to choose from, you don't have access to the Avengers. You don't have access to Black Panther, Captain Marvel, the Fantastic Four, X-Men. These are characters and factions that people want to see Spider-Man involved with. He can only fight the Green Goblin and the Hobgoblin and Raven the Hunter. Kraven the Hunter, excuse me. He can only fight those guys so many times before people want to see him throw down with Wolverine for a little while, even if it's under a misunderstanding. So I think Sony really needs to bite the bullet and just let Marvel handle this. Sony has proven in the past that once they have an inkling of success with Spider-Man, they falter. They get too overzealous, if you will, by trying to build a huge universe pretty much surrounding one character, which is tough to do. It's tough to do. It's easy in the comics because, it's just a different, I don't want to say it's a different audience. It's obviously the same audience, but it's just presented differently. But in the movies, it's hard to present so many different movies with one character. One of the reasons Marvel's so successful is because they had Iron Man to have 3 movies with, that also combined and intertwined with Captain America, and intertwined with Thor, and intertwined with Black Panther and each other and the Avengers and S.H.I.E.L.D. and all that. You have Spider-Man. You don't have access to any of the other stuff. So you can only do so much with one character surrounded by a world of villains. What are you going to make? 16 different Spider-Man movies where he faces each and every one of his villains? What is that, like 33 years worth of Spider-Man movies? You can't do that. You got to pick and choose, and then you have to build. He has a better foundation in MCU than he does with Sony. That's my opinion. I think Sony should bite the bullet, cut the deal, because otherwise this is not going to end well for them. Even if they make an acceptable Spider-Man movie, it's not going to share the success that it has in Marvel, because Spider-Man was successful not only because of his own movies, but because the storyline that involved him and Tony, despite the fact that I got tired of seeing it after a while, and Marvel elevated him to a whole new level. He's part of the Avengers now. You know, if I was Sony, I'd just sit back and let Marvel do what they want and just collect the money and take that money and invest it in other projects. So anyway, guys, that's it for this video. Let me know, what do you think about this? How do you hope? I'm hoping the outcome is they work something out. There's so many different things going on right now in terms of the news regarding this that it's probably going to be a day or two before we get a final say in exactly what's going on and what the future holds. So, but either way, if Sony doesn't cut this deal, they're done. They're gonna lose. In the long run, they're gonna lose. So anyway, let me know in the comments what you think about the situation. And I got another video coming up shortly after this one regarding The Matrix. So stick around for that one. Until then, this is Rob signing off for E.T.N, where we don't do news, we just talk entertainment. Take it easy.